Good day, everybody. I hope that you're well and also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 2 English lesson on adjectives. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, then we're going to select the subject of English Language Arts, grade 2, and then we're going to scroll down up until we get to our chapter of adjectives. All right. So our chapter is adjectives. Our subject is English language arts. Grade 1. And the lessons that we're going to be focusing on is to use since words. And does the adjective tell you what kind or how many? All right. So in adjectives, it tells it tells us about a person, animal, place, or thing. So it's basically it tells us about a noun, or we can say describes the noun. So the adjectives, it tells us about the person, about a place, and about a thing. And some of the adjectives they tell us what kind, and some of the adjectives they tell us how many. And when an adjective usually tells us what kind, right? When it tells us what kind, then usually it can maybe be described in size, can be described in color, can be described in many different ways. In length, how long or how short, how big, how small, if it's round, what type of shape it is. That is how it can be described when we maybe say what kind. And then some of our adjectives that tells us how many, right? Usually it is a number. It will tell us, for example, how many of that specific items there are, how many people there are, how many animals, how many places, how many things. Sometimes it's just, maybe it's not just the specific number. It can maybe even be things like several, some, many, right? And that will also give us an idea of how many. And then some of the adjectives, right? They use since words. They use since words, and then they tell us how a noun look. Remember, a noun is a person, it's an animal, a place, or a thing, right? So some adjectives it tells how a noun looks, how a person, animal, place, or thing looks, how it sounds, how it tastes, how it smells, or how it feels. And that's to do with our senses. So we can say the sun looks bright, right? So we can say the sun looks bright. So, for example, if we want to say, if we want to describe the sun, right, we can describe it being bright, right? The sun being bright. That is how we are describing the sun, as bright. Then, if it's to do with sound, right, then we can say the drums, they sound loud. So, the drums can either be soft or it can be loud. So, the drums sound loud. So, which means that loud or it can be soft. That is our adjectives. The cookies taste sweet. How would we describe that cookies? How would we describe the taste? Bright is the sun, yes. It tells us how the sun looks or how the sun shines. It's quite bright. Loud, it tells us about the sound, right? Yes, it tells us either how loud or how soft the sound is. But now, when it comes to the cookies, how would we describe the cookies? The taste of it. All right. So we would then say that these cookies, they taste sweet, right? We can either say it's sweet cookies, bitter cookies, chocolatey cookies. You describe the taste. Basically, whatever you taste, that is what you describe. And then we say the air smells fresh. How does the air smell? What do you smell? What type of smell do you get? All right, so we can say the air smells fresh. So fresh is our adjective that tells us how the air smells. My hair feels soft. My hair feels soft. And if we were to describe how the hair feels, right, then we would say the hair feels soft. Because remember, there's different textures of hair, right? Can be soft hair, can be coarse hair, can be however you would describe how the hair feels, right? So when it comes to adjectives, right, yes, it tells us what kind, it tells us how many, but some adjectives they also tell us how a noun looks. They tell us how a person, animal, place, or thing look, right? It describes it in the sense of they use the senses to describe it in the form of how it looks, how it sounds, how it tastes, how it smells, or how it feels. So even if they were to tell you to describe somebody in all of these senses, right? You'll be able to say, okay, like my friend looks like this. My friend sounds like this, right? We can't say my friend tastes, but maybe you can say taste. My friend likes sweet things. My friend smells like this. She's got more of a fruity smell, or and feel. You would be able to describe usually when how your friend feels based on maybe her skin. Maybe you've touched her skin already, her hand. Then you can say, oh, she's got soft hands, right? So that is what we can use when you are to describe and to tell us about somebody or person, an animal, a place, or a thing. All right, so now we're going to aplusstudents.ca and we see our chapter is adjectives and the lesson is to use sense words. And we just went over our sense words, right? So just to go over it again, we said an adjective is a word that tells us about a person, an animal, a place, or a thing, right? And some of our adjectives, they tell us how a noun looks, sounds, tastes, smells, or even feels. And we say that the sun looks bright, so bright is our adjective. The drums sound loud, loud is our adjective. These cookies taste sweet, sweet is our adjective. And my hair smells fresh, fresh is our adjective. And lastly, my hair but the air smells fresh and my hair feels soft. These are our adjectives, right? In the form of our senses. And they describe. So we can say they describe. All right? All good. All right, so now we're going to complete the sentence with the best adjective, right? It says, Franken took a bite out of his apple. How would you describe that apple? How would you describe the apple? He took a bite out of his apple. How would you describe the apple? If you were to take a bite out of an apple, right, or out of the apple, then how would you describe the taste of that apple? Remember, there's many ways in which we can describe the taste of an apple, right? Maybe or we can say it's a soft apple, it's a hard apple, a sweet apple, sour apple, right? So maybe here we can say Franklin took a bite out of let's maybe say sweet apple. Let's just assume this apple is very sweet because I like a sweet apple, right? But now you're basically describing the apple or the taste of the apple. Ooh, okay, yeah, it says that it's a juicy apple, right? So yes, you can say it's a juicy apple, sweet apple, sour apple. Remember, you describe something based on what you tasted, right? Because my taste and your taste would be different. All right. We bought some chairs for the living room. If y'all would decide to buy chairs for the living room, what kind of chairs would you decide to buy? Knowing that you are going to sit in the living room, you would want to sit on what type of chairs? All right. So we can then say, okay, can be fresh. Yes, because remember, you would want to be in a living room that's fresh. Or we can say we bought some soft chairs. Because remember, if you sit in the living room, you'd want to sit on nice, soft, fresh chairs. Yes. Right? So soft chairs. So we bought some soft chairs for the living room. Well done. All right. So now we need to describe the color of the donkey, right? The color of the donkey. What color is the donkey? The donkey pulled the wagon across the field. What color donkey? The donkey pulled the wagon across the field. We need to describe the donkey. So the donkey, how would we describe the donkey in color? What color do you think the donkey is? The donkey. All right, if we were to describe the donkey, we can maybe say it is remember donkeys are usually brown, so we can say the brown donkey. So the brown donkey, the naughty donkey, the stubborn donkey pulled the wagon across the field. All right, so now we're going to our test, right? Where we are going to be using sense words. We need to complete the sentence with the best adjective. The desk, right? The desk looks do we say the desk looks too tasty to fit in the corner, or the desk is too large to fit in the corner? It is too tasty to fit in the corner or too large to fit in the corner. So the desk looks, do we say the desk is too tasty to fit in the corner or too large to fit into the corner? All right. We can then say the desk is too large to fit into the corner. Because remember, describing a desk, right? It's got nothing to do with how tasty it is, but in size. So well done. Do we say the silver road or the bumpy road made the car bounce up and down? The silver road or the bumpy road made the car bounce up and down. All right, so we can say the bumpy road, right? So if the road is very bumpy, the car would then basically go up and down, right? It's bouncing. So bumpy it is. So well done, bumpy it is. My cup of soup looks too full, or my cup of soup looks too silent. So too full or too silent. Which one is the correct word? It looks too full or it looks too silent. All right, so we can then say my cup of soup looks full, right? It looks full. Well done. Because we can't say a cup looks silent. All right, a line of, do we say a line of empty or a line of tiny ants walked across the picnic blanket? A line of empty ants or a line of tiny ants walked across the picnic blanket. Empty or tiny. All right, so we can say a line of tiny ants walked across the picnic blanket. So well done, tiny it is. All right, so now does an adjective tell you what kind Or does the adjective tell us how many? So when it comes to an adjective, right? Remember we said an adjective, it tells us more about the noun, tells us more about the person, animal, place, or thing, right? So we can also say that it describes the noun, it describes the person, the animal, the place, or thing. So with adjectives, right, it can either tell us what kind of person, animal, place, or thing it is, or how many, people, animals, places, or things there are. So we're going to have to identify or say, does the adjective tell us how many or does it tell us what kind? So we said an adjective, it tells us about a noun. And some of the adjectives, and we said some of the adjectives, they tell us what kind. And some of the adjectives tells us how many. All right, an example of an adjective that tells us what kind, right, would be the small baby smiled. How would we describe the baby? What kind of baby is it? It says the small baby smiled. So an adjective, it tells us what kind. So in this case, we can say if we describe the baby, we can say it's a small baby. We can say it's the cry baby, the stinky poopy baby, right? But you can describe the baby in many ways. She carried heavy books. What is our adjective within that sentence? All right, so we said she carried heavy books. So what kind of books did she carry? It was heavy, right? These books were heavy. All right, so that is what kind. Remember, when it comes to what kind, you need to ask yourself if you were to identify the adjectives, right? You need to ask yourself, okay, let me identify the nouns. Now you need to ask yourselves, okay, what kind of noun is it? What kind of adjective, sorry, it is, right? Does it tell us what kind? Does it tell us how many? All right. An adjective that tells us how many, right? It says one baby smiled. It can be two babies, it can be three babies smiled. But in this case, we said one baby smiled, so our adjective is one. She carried some books. Remember, I said adjectives that tells you how many doesn't necessarily have to be like, okay, it needs to be like numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 10. You can use words like some and several and so on, right? So she carried some books, and some is the adjective. All right. Okay, so now we're going to look at our sentence and then we're going to say if the adjective tells us either what kind or if the adjective tells us how many, right? Dana played a fun game. Is that an adjective fun? Does it tell us what kind? Does it tell us how many? So Dana played a fun game. If we look at the word fun that's in bold, does it tell us what kind of game Dana played or how many games Dana played? All right. So if we were to select the correct one, we would say it is a fun game and it will tell us what kind of game it is. So we can say it is a fun game, right? So that means what kind of game it is? It's a fun game. We saw wild animals. We saw wild animals. What is the adjective within that sentence? Does it tell us what kind of animals you saw or how many animals you saw? All right. So we saw wild animals. Wild animals. What kind of animals did we see? All right. We saw wild animals, which means that wild is our adjective, which tells us about the animal. Then we also have Ruth has a big secret. Does it tell us what kind of secret it is? All right, so we can say big is our tells us about the secret. All right, so now we're going on to the test, right? So we're going on to the test and we're going to say if the word in bold either tells us what kind it is or if the word in bold tell us how many. All right, so he has brown skates. He has brown skates. Brown, is that telling us what kind of skates he has Or does Brown tell us how many skates he has? Brown skate, what kind of skates he has? Or option two, how many skates he has? All right, so if we were to say if it's what kind or how many, then we can say he has brown skates, which tells us what kind of skates does he have. Okay, so we saw wild animals. So it is basically, is it what kind of animals we saw, or do we say how many animals we saw? All right, so we can say this is what kind of animals, right? It is wild animals. All right. So Ruth has a big secret that tells us what kind or how many. So in this case, we can say it tells us what kind because it's a big secret, right? So what kind of secret? It's a big secret. Cole has blue eyes. Does that tell us what kind of eyes he has or how many eyes he has? Cole has blue eyes. Does it tell us what kind or how many? Cole has blue eyes. Is it what kind of eyes does Cole have or how many eyes he has? So blue eyes, does blue eyes tell us what kind of eyes he has or does it tell us how many eyes he has? So we said Cole has blue eyes, which means that we said it is what kind the blue eyes he has. So well done. The option one is what kind of blue eyes he has. Lindsay will send 7 letters. 7 letters. Is 7 letters telling us what kind of letters he's going to send or how many letters he's going to send? So 7 letters. Lindsay will send 7 letters. Is that telling us what kind of letters she's going to send or how many letters she's going to send? All right, so we can say Lindsay sent 7 letters, which tells us how many letters she had sent. So well done. That's how many. So 7 was written in a number name, 7. Several children laughed. So several children laughed. Does it tell us what kind of children laughed or how many children laughed? So several children. Does it tell us what kind of children or how many children? And if we were to select the correct one, we would say it is how many. Because remember, I made an example when I said that you can say several, more, much, and a number to say how many, right? All right. All right, grade twos. That is now the end of our lesson on adjectives, right? We said an adjective is a word that tells us more about the people, places, animals, or thing. We said we get different kinds of adjectives. Adjectives that will tell us how many, adjectives that will tell us how what kind, and then we also have sense words, right? Which we describe it in the forms of the senses, like who did, like the amount of what it looks like, what it tastes like, what it feels like, what you can see, and so on. All right, so this is the end of our lesson on adjective. Thank you very much, grade two, for joining. You should have a good evening further. Goodbye.